The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I
It's telling me. Good?
There you go. I hear you now.
Cool.
Perfect.
I don't know if you want to wait a minute to let people sign on and then maybe 5 minutes and then we'll get started. I see people joining, so I'll give them a minute.
Everybody good. Okay. Perfect. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
It's some time.
I see everybody as we speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Awesome. I know we have a lot of my elder individuals work with, and not the most sound with technology. So I see popping in now, so it's going to take some patience
Exactly.
there.
Yeah, I see people joining in, so I'm going to give them a couple of minutes.
There we go.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
And we keep going in and out for some
Welcome.
reason.
It's definitely a pleasure to have y'all all filing in right now. It's definitely.
Yes. I'm looking because it keeps chopping up, but you can hear me okay, right?
My guy, Philip Sylvester, brother of mine. Hello.
Okay. It's lagging. All right, so I'll give a couple more minutes and then where people join in, they jump in wherever they fill in.
Okay. Sounds good. And then I think it might be a slight lag in time. So I'll make sure as I'm speaking and you're speaking, I'll give that second to allow face to stop moving, mouth to stop moving, and all the words to come out.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, that's what I thought because it seemed like we were you're slow. I see you talking, but then it's yeah. That might be me though on my end. All right.
Got you.
Dealing with that technology though, so we're gonna roll with the adversity. All right. One more minute and
Probably one more minute and then.
yeah, we said the same thing. Mom.
Welcome everybody piling in. Welcome.
All right. You ready?
Most
Go ahead and
definitely.
get everything started. All right, cool. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Will's Wealth and COVID-19. I have my good friend Padric Scott. I will let him introduce himself, but just to give a general welcome, we are so grateful to have you here. We are grateful that you took your time out of your evening to join us to have this much needed conversation I am Attorney Tiffani Brown. I'm a local attorney here in Tallahassee, Florida. I own my own firm, Tiffani and Brown Law, which I'm sure you all saw so much of as leading up to this event. And then I also work with Gary Roberts and Associates. I do estate planning now and also family law and criminal defense. I am a mother. I am a former Division I softball player at Florida State University. Go Noles. And I also graduated from Florida A&M University College of Law. So that's a little bit about myself. I'm gonna toss it over to my good friend Padric Scott, which you'll be hearing a lot of us as we move through the presentation.
Thank you, my friend. And I just want to, second that welcome. I want to say, thank you to everybody for coming out, for showing a care into yourself and what you've built, over your lifetime, some shorter spans, some very much so longer horizons. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time out to join us this evening. So as Tiffany said, my name is Padric Scott. I was born right here in Tallahassee, Florida. Attended Florida A&M University. From there, played professional football 5 years, Arizona Cardinals, and then also some Arena League. And then my last 2 years being there with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and just kind of seeing that, really took me from wanting to be in medicine, which was my original intended study, to now having a love of wealth management and finance, having seen some very catastrophic things in the financial planning space. And so in terms of background, I'm a wealth management certified professional, really trained and executed on strategies of what eats up an estate tax, which would be part of the conversation today, which would be, basically dollar amounts above that $11.58 million threshold. So seeing some high level planning to the greatest degree, and just want to break it down to where it can be so relevant to you today and being able to maximize what you have going on. So as again, hey, thank you all for coming out and looking forward to a great conversation today.
Yes, and so just to thank you, Padric, that was amazing. So just to give you guys a kind of overview of how this is going to work, you probably see us now. I'm going to shut off our video. Padric and I will shut off our video, and then we have a presentation for you. So you'll hear us talking in the background, but you won't be able to see us, but we are here with you. You see us now, so you can put a face to a name and a face to a voice. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead. We'll shut off our videos. We'll get the presentation started, and hope you guys can learn something tonight, and we empower you to make some choices for your family.
All right.
People can see you. All right. All right. So first, which we've already kind of jumped into, just a quick, again, a little overview for myself and Padric there, and gave you that background of who we are. Also for Mr. Scott. But we really want to start off tonight with thinking about, why did you join us today? Okay, so what brought you here to want to hear this information that we have to offer? Was it the idea of trying to learn about family comfort, knowing that total assurance for your family, maybe the peace of mind of knowing that everything that you have kind of goes according to your desire? Was it about ending that partnership with Uncle Sam? We jokingly put that on there, but really to talk about the tax savings that you may be able to enjoy. Or what about your body, your choices? So maybe creating some health directives. Maybe you have some beliefs that you want to be in place if something were to happen to you. Or what about if you are a mom or a dad, you wanted to learn how to protect your children in the case of any event, any traumatic event, I guess, occurs. You want to know that your children are going to be protected. Or last but not least, but just really wanting information about creating generational wealth. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But really, I would like for you to just keep that in the back of your mind of, why did you join us today? What was it that sparked you to hit the register button to listen to our conversation for today? Padric, you got anything to add on to that?
Not at all. Hit it right on the head.
All right, great. So our first thing, we talked about COVID-19, and I'm gonna throw this over to Patrick because he had some very good points. So go ahead, take it away.
When we think about what we've experienced in this COVID-19 environment, I would say what I'm hearing from clients, what I'm hearing from people is just the impact of, are all my ducks in a row? And so being able to now take a hard look at what we have, the planning we've done to make sure that everything is quite in place, whether that's someone's just starting out and trying to build, whether someone's, hey, nearing retirement and the drop in wealth was very scary. And so making sure that all the things are in place that need to be. And also on the back end of that, so from some individuals, substantial wealth, even though it was scary, it also represented a planning opportunity to now being able to lock in, valuations for an estate. So now an estate could be able to pass on under current limits with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act before that limit goes away in 2025 and things readjust there. So I would say our new reality in the face of COVID-19 is understanding, hey, how do we carve out the time to make sure that what we worked so hard for in our life to have now, the things that we're working to build, that they go the way that we want them to go and need them to go. So I would say that is the thing to consider now is, hey, are we really okay? Is everything taken care of? But if something was to have happened yesterday, what position will we be in had this been a little bit worse?
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's just the grim reality that that COVID, I think, has forced a lot of us to really consider.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For example, I hear things a lot of times, and we'll touch on it, but just to say, I hear people say, oh man, a trust is for, people who have substantial assets. Well, no, that's not true. Trust is for everybody who has something to care for. If you want to pass on things the right way or make sure in state of incapacity, you're good to go. Unfortunately, by not having those things enforced, what end up becoming our trust is like a GoFundMe. And now that GoFundMe is on Facebook to ask for money to try to get things done. And so I say with proper planning, COVID-19 or an event that we're not expecting, we get to hedge it and be okay versus feeling like we're behind the 8 ball. So yeah, definitely a reality of let's make sure everything's taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So moving along, one of the initial inquiries. So if you have a plan, because some people on here that's joining us tonight, you may have a plan. So my question to you is, when was the last time you reviewed your existing plan? Have you purchased a home, in between the time that you created maybe a will or a trust? Have you purchased a home, maybe purchased some stocks, uh, you know, different types of life adventures, maybe had another child? When was the last time you reviewed your existing plan if you have one? Or on the flip side, if you don't have a plan, let's talk about what happens in the event that something happens to you, whether you become incapacitated or you do pass away. The state has a plan. The legislatures are the one who have dictated what will happen to your assets. So let's talk about that really fast. Okay, so what usually happens at the event of either a death or incapacity? Okay, in Florida, we have what's called the probate or guardianship. Probate is for death, guardianship is for incapacity. And a lot of people ask, well, what is probate? Well, this is a cool way to think about it. It's a lawsuit that you file against yourself with your own money for the benefit of your creditors. Okay. I mean, did you catch that? It's a lawsuit that you file against yourself with your own money for the benefit of your creditors. Okay. So it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with passing down your assets or trying to go according to how you want it. Okay. And in that process, it's slow, right? So not only is it slow, but you also have all of these fees coming out and draining your estate, draining the hard earned assets that you've worked for if you have them. Okay, you have the attorney's fees. If you have to get something appraised, you have those fees coming out. You have bond premiums for your personal representative. You have creditors, obviously, if it's within the 2 year. time, you have the filing fees, you have executors fees, and just thinking about that, it just drains your estate. The goal of, creating a plan or even accumulating assets is, I think, at least to pass down as much as you can to your heirs, right? To put them in a position to continue your legacy. So, with that being said, I'll give you just an idea of how this could work. Say, for example, we drive every day, right? We're driving in the car, we get into a bad accident. We are now incapacitated. Okay. We cannot make decisions for ourselves, whatever that may look like for you. All right. In the event right now that you don't have a plan in place, what will happen is your maybe probably your mom or dad, your sister or brother, maybe an auntie and uncle, depending on your relationship, will have to, I guess first your assets will be frozen. So nobody will be able to get into your bank account to pay for your rent or your mortgage, to take care of your everyday necessities. Okay, so that's problem number one. Problem number two would be you wouldn't be able to make any decisions for yourself, and neither would the next of kin for you. Okay, they don't have that authority. And so, with some proper planning, you'll be able to prevent that. Patrick, you have any? Kind of was going through there, but I know you may have something to add on there as well.
Yeah, I would just say that's such a powerful statement, right? You know, who wants to file a lawsuit against themselves for the benefit of people who want money from us? I mean, that's such a powerful takeaway. You know, so often it happens, but in an example given, you even mentioned, like you said, you know, hey, next of kin couldn't get to it. But the truth of the matter is, you know, while I also have an amazing relationship with my sister and my brother, there's some people who don't have those relationships, and they may not
Right.
want their next of kin to be the person that makes decisions for them. They may have a particular person that they would like to be able to execute on those decisions to make sure management goes fine. And, you know, working with a lot of business owners, they like to know the succession planning is going well, things of that nature. And so now if somebody gets control of the reins that we didn't even want to control in the first place, now we have, right, one of those ugliest family situations that now take place when the wrong person gets control at the wrong time, making the wrong decision. So
Right.
absolutely, I think the example really hits that on the head.
Yeah. And then a couple other things too about what the state's plan for you, right? You are giving away your control. So you've worked hard to accumulate these assets, put yourself in this position, and then you're handing away the reins to the state to make decisions for you. The other thing too about the state's plan is public, okay? Obviously, you don't get to decide who you want your assets to go to, or who you do not want them to go to, right?
Mm.
If you have a blended family, what about your kids? Say you have a blended family, you have kids outside of your new marriage, okay? If something happens to you, your kids aren't going to be able to get anything without any planning, okay? Um, what about assets that are transferred to your heirs, okay? If something happens to you while your kid is a minor at 18, do you want them getting $500,000? Okay, I know I spent a lot of money when I was 18, so so I know, you probably wouldn't want your 18-year-old to get a large lump sum of money like that. But that is what will happen if you do not create any planning, and dictate your control of what you want to happen with the things that you've created. So,
Yeah, and then just
um,
follow up with that, Tiffany.
yeah.
It's amazing you mentioned that scenario. I actually met with a clients today, 85 and 70, and the young lady mentioned, you know, planning going wrong actually. And so her father had, you know, did some planning but didn't update it, as you mentioned earlier. And so by not
Right.
updating, you know, remarried, ended up doing a irrevocable trust. And as a result, the new wife was a trustee on that, and it took all of his former children off of it. And as a result, now they were completely disinherited for the most part, and now things passed solely to her, and now the kids are completely left out of that inheritance. So not
Right.
only, you know, instead of making sure we're planning to maybe bypass probate and reduce those costs, but also taking the time to update things as, you know, blended families, diverse families, however that may, you know, shape out. we want to make sure that the planning as is really solves on the equitable interest across the board and making sure that everyone's taken care of for sure.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely 100%. And so I just like to talk about some typical planning experience where most people think I get a lot of questions of, hey, can you draft a will? Or, hey, I need a will. So some typical planning experiences right now that you'll see. Um, you go into a law office, you say, hey, I want to do some estate planning. Okay. This is usually, probably, it's a one-time transaction where you get some form documents. All right. Whether they draft it or not, it's form documents. Okay. Um, you may avoid probate, which we just talked about, how that drains the estate. You may avoid estate taxes. You leave assets again to those heirs unprotected. There's no ongoing legal guidance, I'm sorry, where you heard Padric just talk about a tragic story about where assets were left out because nobody's going back behind you to make sure that you are capturing your assets, you keeping those up to date, or whether you're transferring them over into the trust if you choose to do that. Again, we talk about the loss of assets to the state Department of Unclaimed Property, which we'll hit on in a minute.
Mm.
And I think a big one for me is just the possibility of family conflict. Okay. So I've seen a lot of families talk about, well, yeah, now the sister won't speak to me. Okay. Or, the brother is mad because he wanted X, Y, and Z. And all of that, which I'm sure if the parents or whoever passed away was here, they probably wouldn't want that infighting. But all of that family conflict could be prevented by just a simple plan. I think it becomes more clear if I say, well, that's what my mom or dad, that's what they wanted. Okay, that's more easy to come to terms with versus the court saying X, Y, and Z, or a sibling saying X, Y, and Z. And then also for my parents, in the event of an emergency, you may not have no temporary guardians named. And so in the time where, again, I'll go back to my example with the accident, and your kid is at home with a babysitter. Okay, the police is gonna come. They say, yeah, hey, talk, your parents, yada yada yada. Well, there's no temporary guardian. We don't know where the will is, so we don't know who the guardian is named, if there is one. What happens to your child in that moment? They're going to be taken into custody, not arrested, but just state custody, right? DCF is going to come in. They're going to shelter the child until the next of kin can come. So that's double trauma for your child, and that could just simply be prevented by having just, again, taking some time to create a plan that works for your family.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. And so, Padric, we've talked about assets, right? And I'm sure some people out there are like, well, dang, I don't have any assets, right? What, like, this may not be for me. So what do you say to that, Padric, where you hear people say, I don't have any assets, this may not be for me? We'll start with the perspective of, someone coming in, how I presented to your office back then, where I just became a mom. I didn't have anything in place. Or what kind of advice, or, well, not advice, but tips maybe that you can recommend to throw in there?
Got you. So given that scenario, a lot of times, as you mentioned, people say, well, I don't have anything. Well, one of the beautiful parts about, the financial, products and that we have access to, we can create an estate instantly. And so that is one of the powers of life insurance, for an example, is that it's an instant estate creator. So for someone who says, hey, I don't have anything, that's a way to create something right away. So now this contract that we enter into, say with an insurance firm, now we secure a benefit from them. It could be for a term of years, right? 20 or 30. It could be a permanent benefit held for life, now accumulating there in terms of assets there. So now that becomes a way that we can now fund up, say, a trust or leave things behind to our beneficiaries, to be able to hit on as well. Another thing, you mentioned that. One thing I've heard is I don't have any kids. So why do I need this, right? Why would I need this? That comes up so often. And I say back to that, I don't got no kids either. And I don't plan on having that no time soon. And so from that, it still becomes Padric still has, his will and trust and things of that nature executed by such a great attorney here on camera right now. And so as a result, I need my business and things to go in the way that I want it to go. I don't want my clients to be, left strung alone. I have my successor already named. I don't want, my family to be left, with a burden, because at the end of the day, the reason I work so hard is to be able to take care of, my mother, my father, to an even greater degree than what they've taken care of, myself, my brother, my sister, and the sacrifices they made. So that pushes me. So why would I now not plan to see that come into fruition, whether I'm here or gone? And so I think, we as people, we oftentimes want to take control of a situation, but when it comes to the situation of, hey, the one known fact in life, and death is not an if thing, it's a when thing. And so I want to make sure that whenever that happens, all the things that I've set out to see happen while alive still happen. So being able to have proper planning in place to be able to make sure the things that we have built go to the right place. Otherwise, now the state gets to decide, and now we have all that unclaimed property, like you said, we're going to hit on. And then now let's flip that narrative and say, okay, we have the assets. Well, guess what? We definitely want to make sure we're doing planning there. So it could be, let's say if I have a business, and making sure in the succession plan that's executed, and what happens if I become incapacitated, who's going to now take over management? Do I have, a durable power of attorney, granted, that can spring into action when things happen? Do I have now, the funding from the life insurance or maybe disability insurance to fund a buyout so that now my business can, change hands and things of that nature in a very smooth fashion? So these are all questions that have to be answered. If not, now we're stuck in a bad place. Now you have individuals who have to sell businesses at below fair market value. All of their hard work now is lost, home lost, things of that nature. Like, for example, pets on here, what happens to little poo-poo? Hey, who's going to get her or him? So all these questions just get back to what is it that we care about? And if you have something or someone or some cause that you care about, that becomes a reason now to do proper planning. Maybe it's a charity, something you want to give to, you want to donate to. So now that might be, a benefit gifted now at passing. So there's just so much to be answered to now making sure that assets, whether we don't have them, we have them, we can create them, but then also make sure that they get to the right hands at the right time with the right guidance.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just so important. Just, little things, of course, that we don't know. Well, we can't act on what we don't know. And so that's a really big thing. So, good points there, as always. Okay, so I talked about that unclaimed property, right? You've heard that a couple of times. So this is currently in our state of Florida. I know I don't know if they're on here, but I know I had some people register from out of state. So just if you're curious, just Google, unclaimed property in whatever state you're in. So in the state of Florida, currently right now, there is $2 billion worth of unclaimed assets. Okay, just sitting there, just $2 billion. And this happens as a result of assets forgotten about, right? Maybe the family doesn't know about them. There may be some insurance policies that maybe have changed over. They're not aware of them. Things that are left out of the estate. So $2 billion. And ironically, all of this probably, I won't say all, but a lot of it, we'll say, would probably have been, this would have been prevented by just doing a little bit of planning. Okay, $2 billion. Crazy. Crazy. All right. So we've talked about, what happens, what is the state's plan for you? Have you reviewed your thing? Have you reviewed your planning? So let's just talk about some better options, okay, that may be available to you, I guess from our point of view. So I'm going to throw these questions to Padric, which I think you may have hit on already, but from the asset point of view, what type of funding is available, to help again begin this movement toward building wealth? We may have some people on here that may be interested in that generational wealth, kind of helping the family, helping their children start off on the right foot, maybe with the $1 million inherited fund. So what can you express to our listeners on how to maybe get started there?
Absolutely. I would say let's say we're building from scratch or even beyond scratch. Because I think oftentimes we undervalue ourselves immensely, right? We'll say, for example, a $100,000 insurance policy is a lot. Well, let's say if someone's making just $50,000 a year, well, that's just 2 years of earnings in one policy. So oftentimes we highly undervalue ourselves, so we don't even consider how to fund. I think about in this, for example, of the funding, example that we just talked about. I have a very good friend of mine, an advisor in Detroit, and he always says, his father passed, left about a $30,000 policy, and he couldn't even tell you where it went between that being split between, him and his sister and them having to pay for everything. Boom, now it's gone. He said, imagine if my father would have met me, what now would have been the narrative of my siblings and I. And so I would say from a funding standpoint, definitely, being able to leverage insurance, it is an asset that allows to be enjoyed while alive, an asset that can be allowed to be enjoyed at passing. So it's one of those assets that we're going to be able to capture a full benefit, whether we live a long and healthy life and being able to access, the living benefits of tax sheltering and higher yields there. But then also, hey, whatever we don't, advance from a death benefit, we get to pass on as a tax-free transfer, pending the size of someone's estate, of course, and we can even get that off the estate. So that is definitely, hey, one way to be able to fund things up. Then there's a transferring of assets as well. So you have like revocable trust we could, leverage. So now the trust are, holds pretty much all of our assets. Ownership is split. We still act as trustee and grantor, so we have control of those assets for our benefit. But a powerful benefit of doing that there is, say, if something was to happen, we have a successor trustee name. So someone that we trust that we can step in and make sure our affairs are all in order, given a situation like, what Tiffany has so eloquently explained. So those are just some different fundings of transferring of existing assets to a trust to now be held as beneficiary. For example, Tiffany mentioned, hey, HAT should have blown $500,000, right? And so one of the part of a trust and provisions there written out, well crafted, we can control that distribution. Oftentimes, individuals turning 18 to 21 to 25, heck on up to 30 with learning life lessons. If a large benefit is paid out, that wealth that could have been generational changing and going from son to granddaughter and on forward is lost. And so I would say even in the funding of assets is the ability to craft out what is that we will want to happen with those assets. So I would say in the goal of building generational wealth, it starts with understanding, hey, let's first create an estate. That's what life insurance allows us to do, is to lock in the fair market value of the earnings that we're going to try to create there moving forward. And then now strategically, invest and do these different things, but make sure we have the right beneficiaries of those assets. So as they pass on, we get to have a say-so in that stake as well, versus now an unprepared heir receiving wealth and now blowing it. Now all that hard work is for nothing as well.
Right. And I'll kind of just discuss what a trust is. It's coming up. I'm sure some of you all might be thinking, what is a trust? So I'll hit on that in a minute. But essentially, and just to kind of give you an idea, Patrick will be the one, setting up this funding, right? I come in where your attorney or an attorney would come in and set that up to make sure that everything is moving according to your desires. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, really quick, we'll talk about our children. So I know this was really big for me and really was the catalyst behind me wanting to make sure that I'm creating, a future for my son or any future kids to thrive. And so, Patrick, I mean, just kind of hit on you may have, if you feel like it's duplicative, obviously just refer to above. I mean, refer to previous statements. But if you have anything else to add on just about, parents with children and how we can kind of get in on that.
Well, from the planning side there, one way we can even lessen build to our kids is for sure, if you have 529 options, you have like a prepaid state plan where you kind of lock in the present cost. college tuition that way, but there's some risk that could be involved there depending on where child decides to go to school. Another great option is a 529, the investment option there, savings plan. So now you're kind of getting tax sheltering there on the growth, and then also the ability to take tax-free distributions for qualified education. And so you now have there that ability to pay for private school, things of that nature. If they want to go study abroad, that all counts. Credit institutions, that counts as well. Then also 529, depending on the level of wealth, is a great way to kind of manage someone's estate. You can make let's say a super gift to a 529, advance for 5 years, so 15,000 times, 5 being at 75,000. And if you have a spouse, you can split that gift and make that $150,000 contribution. So let's say if we have someone on here whose wealth has scratched that, number, and we want to watch the amount of gifts we make, right? Because when you make a gift above the annual exclusion of 15,000, that becomes a taxable gift that now gets factored back in when someone passes away. And so if that plus the size of our estate, excels, 11.5 AM, now we have a taxable event. So I will also say a 529 is just a great, gift planning tool to be able to fund up a child's education, or a grandparent who wants to make gifts to children. That is an amazing way to be able to take advantage of, do like a 529 plan. Then also in terms of assets for children, you want to really watch that. For example, you have some individuals who will put, let's say, assets or investments aside what's called an UTMA or UGMA account for children, for minors. And what happens though is at the age of 18, everything in there goes from you to them at age of majority. And so now let's say at age 18, your child isn't the most, let's say, responsible individual. Well, now they got access to stocks, bonds to go play with and get all their friends at school to have a great time, which is not what you probably intended those assets to be used for. Another great asset to kind of take advantage of funding for a child is actually life insurance as well, because life insurance is priced based off someone's cost of insurance. So who's healthier than a child? So the ability to overfund a life insurance contract there and have that, tax deferred nature there, and you get to control the contract and decide when you want to give that and change ownership. That's a powerful planning tool as well to prevent your child from receiving, wealth well before they're desired. And then there's some trust options too that we can really hit on and go deeper into offline. 2 503B or C type trusts, and paying income to children, but also maintaining their the integrity of the principal balance coming out of their age of majority, and you get to decide when they receive those things. So those are all options between, hey, trust planning, overfunded life insurance planning, UGMA, but understanding, hey, they get that at the age of 18. Those are all different ways to be able to help parents fund up things for children to make sure they arrive well positioned.
Yeah. And then from the planning side, just some better options when it comes to your children. And I kind of hit on it earlier, but instead of just naming one guardian, I do what's called a kids protection plan, which would name also a temporary guardian. Okay, so in that event, that time between where the emergency happens and the next of kin could make it to, or the guardian could make it to, you keep your family out of court. Okay, you keep your family from fighting over who's going to take care of the children you've chosen, because who's best to take care of your children in the event of an emergency or a tragic event. What's best. So some different options, naming that temporary guardian. Okay, also having that visible, which actually comes in like a little ID card, but it's in your wallet. Maybe it's on the fridge as well. So in the event of that emergency, we can find your guardian. Okay, we can find your temporary guardian. Also, Padric talked about that different type of funding. So if you wanted to leave, or you left that amount to your children, there are things that we can include in your plan to say, hey, my child is going to get this at this age, this next age, this next age. Another thing too, which we'll hit on about the trust, is if you put everything in a trust, your children, they're considered to never own those assets. And so what's so important about that is if I don't own it, right, then I can't necessarily lose it. So if your child was to get into an accident, maybe they were negligent, they try to come after them individually, well, they can't come after your inheritance that you left them because they don't own it. That is if it's in a trust. Um, and so same thing about divorces. Okay. That's important, at least for a lot of people, because that you see a lot of inherited assets lost in lawsuits, divorces, the business closing, anything could happen. So that's one different thing, I guess, the benefit um, about doing a different type of planning. And so this is a big one, Patrick. I know when we were going over this, we talked about this, but do you trust who the state chooses to take care of you? Okay, that is your decision. If you trust, who the state would choose to take care of you in the event that you become incapacitated, right? So in the event, if I have maybe some vegans on the line or, some very green, holistic, point of views, you probably wouldn't want to be in the hospital getting traditional medicine. You probably would want to go to some retreat in the middle of the jungle, to heal. But you, without any planning, it would be hard to have that happen. Okay. Your wishes would not be carried out, at least in that manner. So I thought that was a good question to hear. Like, do I trust who the state would choose to take care of me? Good
Absolutely.
question. Good
Absolutely.
question. Good question.
That's a powerful point because a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so now, okay, well, the state of Florida, who they decide to take care of me in this instance and give all authority to. And so
Right.
I don't just hand over authority just anybody. I would say I'm blessed that in my immediate family, I would trust, who that might go to, whoever it would be, but not the people not in that position. And so, also you may know that one person may not be able to make those hard decisions that you may want it to be made too. And so things of
Right.
that nature, having living wills and things that expelled out, allows for people just kind of make sure that things go the way you want them to go and they're not left for guess. And you're not the next big case on TV where they're talking about, was this foul play? So yeah,
Right.
definitely taking the time to spell all those things out. Absolutely.
Right. Right. Okay. Good point. Definitely. All right, so we're going to carry on. We're going to talk about the trust. I know we're running out of time, so we definitely want to hit on the trust, which you've heard us talk about. And the way I describe a trust is you see the treasure box there in the middle. Think of it as a box, okay? So as long as you are living that trust, you can transfer things in and out of it. So, your business can be named in that, real estate can be named in that, any assets or anything, essentially assets. You can have your life insurance policy, once it is issued out, be fund your trust. So as long as you're living, you can move things in and out of it. At the time of your death, it then becomes irrevocable. So, meaning nobody can change it. Okay. There are some things that will happen at the time of your death, some decisions that you would have to make on what is most convenient and I guess the best for your family. But the trust is literally and probably the best planning option to keep your family out of court. Okay, to keep maybe limit the conflict, protect your assets from, well, there's some other protections that need to happen, but you have that option at least to protect your assets from being lost in divorce, being lost in a new marriage, in the event that there's a death, of a younger person, your spouse decides to get remarried, being lost in lawsuits. Okay, so the trust is really a good option, to really protect your assets, but also your family, and just keep everything copacetic. And Patrick hit on this earlier. um,
Absolutely.
I don't know if you can see that, Patrick, but he really did hit on this early, and it's a hard reality. I'll just read it. Well, actually, you all can read it there, but just the idea of a trust is not only for wealthy individuals, okay? It's not. It is for, like Patrick talked about, everyone with anything to care about. You deserve a trust. You too deserve a trust. You too deserve the opportunity to create generational wealth if you so choose. Okay, you two have the ability to take care of these options that we may not know about. Okay, and a trust is one of those things. So it's not just for the wealthy, it's for you as well, so long as you have anything to care about. And I think
Absolutely.
the biggest thing, well, at least the good thing, well, I won't say the good thing, but the point that hit home for me, like if we did that, we would not have to be on GoFundMe, right? Asking people for assistance to take care of our own. And that is so grim, but it is a real reality, especially for, our community, the minority community, right? That is very huge because we find ourselves in situations where we could have just done a little bit of planning. We may not have to do the GoFundMe. And that's just a real reality. All right,
Absolutely.
the trust. We made it to the trust. All right, so we've talked about some better options. Okay, so just to recap, and Padric, feel free if you have anything to recap. But again, one size does not fit all. Okay, the planning is very specific to you and your family. And so if you have the one size fits all, if you feel like going to what is it called, legal Zoom or whatever, I think that's what it's called, legal Zoom, but to do the form documents, if you feel like that's best for your family, obviously that's your choice. But just know, at least move with the knowledge that one size fits all planning leaves your family at risk, right? Those documents, those bland documents, that also leaves your family at risk. It leaves holes in your planning. It does not keep account of the assets that you may have. It does not keep your assets out of court if that's something that is important to you. It does not necessarily keep your assets out of that $2 billion of unclaimed property that the state is, I don't even know what they do with it, but that the state has. It potentially leaves your kids at risk. And one of the big ones, right? It only addresses your financial assets. But what about the emotional? What about your social? What about your spiritual? What about your intellectual capital? I got to give credit to Padric for that one because that was dope. Like, what about that as well? We have more to pass on than just our money, right? Just our assets. So Pat, you got anything to add on to that?
I would say in that we talk about what's wrong in our country 24/7. We talk about the wealth gap that exists, the discrepancies, but I want to just simply raise the question, well, what are you doing about it? And it's one thing to talk about it, it's one thing to be about it. Will your family be better because of the decisions you made today, or will they be worse? There's one thing I can say about myself. I know that whether I am here or gone, the Scott family and any extension will be better because of the decision that I'm making from the practice being built, living, or if I'm gone. Because I worked way too hard. God has blessed me way too much to not be a good steward of the resources that He gifted me. And so I'm going to say, what are you going to do about it? And so that now gets back to taking a hard look at self. It gets back to taking a hard look at where we're at. It's comfortable to just keep going and doing the same thing over and over and over. But if we're doing the same thing over and over and over, we're expecting different results. I was taught that that's the definition of insanity. And so by expecting different results, then we're not going to see them if we keep taking the same approaches to our wealth. And that's not a thing of greed. It's a thing of being a good steward of your money, which even goes back to the parable of the talents. So I'm going to say it may take a little time to put together, but those few moments of sitting down and having a good conversation with a good estate planning attorney, with a good financial advisor, or some form of that team, to now pull that picture in together to make sure that the assets that you have, they're not just wasted. For example, individuals with pensions that are being paid out, do you know that, hey, when you pass away, that goes? Whereas if you have the ability to take some money and carve it out of that, now you're able to make that live forever. And so not just a passing of financial capital, but what about the emotional capital? Letting your children know or grandchildren know how you thought about them, the way you wanted them to grow up, the social capital, the spiritual capital, the beliefs, the intellectual capital, the family stories, Right? Imagine how much is lost in our community, and we think about our heritage and say we can't even trace it, but other people can trace their heritage back forever. Why? Because they've been passing it on. And so I'm going to say that I just hope from this conversation that we had today, it sparks in you that motivation to make sure you're taken care of. You don't got to worry about me, right? My family's going to be good. You don't got to worry about Tiffany. She's doing it too. So the question you have to ask is, will you, your family, your business, what you work so hard for, does it go the way you want it to go, or does it go the way the state says it should go?
Right. Right. Very good. And I know we are coming down to our time, so just we have a few more things. But if you do have some questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box, the question box there, and we'll definitely try to answer them. I'm gonna speed through this, so we'll definitely get to your question. I do see one. So really quick, what's next? Okay, so out of everything that we discussed today, what do you feel is the most important to you and your family? Okay, that's something that I want you to think about as you take away from our presentation today. So for myself, if you would like to schedule a life and legacy planning session, you'll be able here. We'll go over your assets. You'll get financially organized. If you decide to move forward with planning, you will be empowered. You will be the one making the choices, not myself. Okay, I'll just be there as a guide, and then you can know with certainty that obviously your family will be guided because I'll be there throughout the whole process. From our relationship would begin at the time we start our planning. Okay, not that wouldn't be the end. And so you can schedule one of those. And then I know for Padric, he has the strategic wealth planning session, which again gives an overview of your assets. It clarifies the values, the visions, and goals to help understand what is most important for you. You're able to craft a strategic course of action to make sure you're well positioned. And then there is a no fee consultation for Padric's planning session. So he's super special. he has all the information. And then I do have a special offer. Okay, so just as a huge special thank you for joining us tonight, I will be offering everyone that attended and registered. You'll be able to get one free life and legacy planning session. So that is usually $750. So I'm going to waive that fee, and then you'll receive 50% off the total fee for any planning option that you choose that works best for your family. So write this code down, Wheels in COVID, Wheels in COVID. And if you go to my website, which you'll see on the next screen, you'll be able to enter that promo code, and I know I'll waive the session, the planning fee, and then also you'll get the 50% off of any planning option. Okay, just a huge thank you. So I did receive a question to my text message. Is there an expiration date? No, there's no expiration date. So long as you have that code, I got you. All right, so contact us. I'm gonna leave this information up. Padric, I know we have one question, so I'm gonna see if we have anything else. Okay, so we have one question, Padric. If you had one thing you wanted us to take away from this, what would it be?
I would say that
it's a good question.
That one takeaway would be to care enough about yourself to take time to plan for yourself. Because otherwise what happens with life, and I've seen it at the highest levels of wealth, I mean, working with individuals worth 12 million who will tell you they have no plan. And what happens is because we all want to make it, we all want to get there, we work so hard, we build it, and now we're sitting on a ticking time bomb. And so I would say just being able to step away from the busyness of life for a few moments to now, take a look at the things you have and make sure that everything is aligned. Because if it's not aligned, what that means is there's going to be a lack of efficiency. And if there's a lack of efficiency, I mean, that gap could harm you in so many ways, whether it be taxes, whether it's the wrong person's taking care of your children, because you maybe named somebody a godparent, but it wasn't in writing, and the state said, nah, play it's this person. And so it just, to take that time to focus on what matters the most I would say is the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think I would say my biggest takeaway, if I could send you with some words, is that know that you have the power to create, what you want. Okay, as far as planning, I mean, I think that's in life, but as far as in planning, that it's not limited to a certain class of people, a person that looks a certain color. It is for all of us, and we can create that, and we can leverage that. And so that would probably be my one thing to take away, and really act on that power that you have to create that, for the betterment of your legacy, and what you want for your family. So that would probably be my biggest takeaway. And I really touch on that because I just think it's really a lack of knowledge. I think maybe one day I'll do a webinar on air property and the fallacy behind that. And so I just think of that and just a lack of knowledge. And so we have the power as well to use this, to leverage that, to create our generational wealth, our legacy. So that's that. Okay,
Can I
this is a question. Yeah,
Can I just sum up
yeah,
what we said? And simply just say this: let it be okay to have these conversations. If I would say
yeah,
the reason the lack of knowledge is there, the reason the planning doesn't get done is because oftentimes we're very private in nature about wealth and money. We feel maybe ashamed of some decisions that we made, but they shouldn't be that way. We just didn't know. And if the conversation never gets had, then the things never get done. So I would say placing ego aside to just have that conversation, because it can be a conversation that can save you now and later.
right. Yeah, that's a very good job. That's a very good point, definitely. Okay, Patrick, I think this is a question for you. So, is there an age limit for college prepaid program?
So if I'm looking at a 529 plan, you can hop in at any time, but understand this, for example, like that, the prepaid, can I just be quite honest? Um,
Yeah.
I don't, okay, I'll say this. I don't know someone's situation. So you
Uh-huh.
can put in towards a prepaid plan. You'd have to look at the funding there to get it caught up, depending on the age of your child before they go to school. I would honestly say, looking at that 529 savings plan and being able to leverage that, because it's going to be a little bit more flexible in nature. Now, the only issue you have is, hey, by a certain age, hey, if that hasn't been used, now that becomes taxable. But the beautiful part is that could be transferred from beneficiary to beneficiary. So let's say if you have multiple children, you may be able to open up, one 529 plan for your, 15 or 16 or 14-year-old, fund that bad boy. And then now, hey, they use that throughout college. And let's say you funded it so well that maybe your child got scholarships, it didn't need to be used as much. So now the excess amount, you can transfer that immediately to the next of kin too. So I would say from there, on a strategic planning standpoint, that flexibility, I would say you just want to weigh that out before you lock yourself into the prepaid program as well.
Mm,
But
okay.
age 30 will be the
So,
taxable event.
okay. Which one would you recommend? Alaska. Which one would you recommend? That's the question.
Which one I recommend? Like I said, this completely depends on the person, but I think I answered
Okay.
in that last one. And depending on age, but just the flexibility that can come with a 529 savings plan. But at the end of the day, if someone's very
Oh,
risk averse, if prepaid might be the better option for them if they're not okay with the investment fluctuations there, which would actually be in their best benefit, not their detriment. So I would say for
okay.
me personally, 529 savings, that depends on the person.
Okay. So make an appointment. Future Circuit Judge Tiffany Baker. Okay. One question. Can you make a list, Guardians? I don't know if this is gonna cut off everybody. So if it does, please email your questions to me. Okay, so can you make a list of guardians? Like, so if something has happened to your preferred guardian, yes, that is exactly what we would do. That's different, at least for my planning. It would be a successor guardian, so at least 3 guardians named. So yes, that's a great question. All right. So again, I don't know if it's gonna cut off, but a huge thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. I do hope that you all, okay, good, it didn't cut off. I hope you all were able to just take away some nuggets, um, and make sure that, just something to take away to kind of basically start these conversations, to start having these conversations, which I know Padric hit on, which is great. So um, I really just want to say thank you. I will come back on video so you all can see me. I don't know if you want to join Padric, but yes, so just thank you so much again for joining us. I really do appreciate it. I hope you learned something. I hope you're able to take some of these discussions and kind of start creating conversations, and move toward seeing the benefits of planning, seeing the benefits of learning this information and leveraging this information. And so I hope if you, oh, I'm sorry, I just got a troubleshooting issue, but if for some reason you weren't able to get our contact information, email me. You'll get an email after this. So email me, and you'll be able to just shoot over, just say, hey, I need that information, and I'll definitely give it over to you. And Padric, you got anything? Hey. Okay, so, hey.
It's like real choppy, but
Oh,
everybody,
okay.
thank you so much for coming out. It was definitely a pleasure. I think when you cut the camera on, it kind of made everything go choppy.
Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. Okay. Sorry about that. So go ahead, Padric. I'll let you go. Let me cut my camera off. How about that?
So I was just saying, perfect. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who came out. Feel free to contact me via email or phone call there, leave a message. We'd love to be able to carve out that time to talk about what's most important to you and how we can make sure, hey, the things you want to go, they go the way you want them to go. And just always, hey, let's make sure the right money gets into the right hands at the right time in the right way with the right guy. That's what matters.
Absolutely. And if you didn't hear me, sorry. I do live out in the country, and so I think maybe that had something to do with it. But if you had some follow-up questions, shoot me an email. I'll be glad to answer them. Thank you so much for joining. A quick shout out though to GC Murray. He helped me with putting this together as well. Thank you so much, Padric, for taking time out to join me. You are a real one. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for encouraging me to do this. Uh, my group chat, my girl said they want to shout out. So my best friend, Alicia, Sabi, Shakira, thank y'all so much because y'all did push me to get on out there. My family, my mom. Okay, all right. I'm not gonna give everybody a shout out, but I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much.
I gotta shout out my mama. Shout out to my
Yes,
mama, Pam Scott. She's the real OG, the original P. Scott.
she brought out.
I love you.
Well, I appreciate her.
Yeah, most definitely. And Pop Song, family on, whoever got on, hopped on. I love y'all.
Yes, yes. Thank y'all. All right. So, and Mama, I said family, but thank you, Tangy Brown. You the best too. All right. Thank y'all so much. I'm gonna let y'all go. We appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.